tonight we have Katie Buckley, who is our pollination coordinator, health coordinator for the Washington State Department of Agriculture. She's chair for the Washington State Pollinator Health Task Force, and she leads our WSDA's pollinator program. And she's always giving talks to people. She talks about pollinator issues, different state agencies, conservation, agriculture, and other industry. She talks with those people, industry groups, and she has an active program on pollinator education. So she's going to combine a walk through her garden, talk about plant selection, habitat creation, and other considerations when transforming your yard into a pollinator haven. Many of the same principles apply when creating pollinator habitat elsewhere, though there can be other considerations, and questions at the end will be questions will be welcome. And I didn't ask her if she wants us to interrupt her or wait till the end. So Katie, I will let you tell them that. Thank you.
Just one comment.
I'm fine with interrupting.
Okay. David wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just want to say she's also was very instrumental in getting the Washington Bee Atlas started. Just wanted to give her kudos for that. So thank you.
Yes. And would everybody please mute so we don't get any more echoes, except for Katie, obviously. Thank you.
And you guys are all going to probably want to switch to speaker mode for the tour, because otherwise my video will be very, very tiny for you. Also starring in this video will probably be my cat Monkey, who will be following me around as she does. So I'm going to start with the side of my house, and we'll finish kind of on the other side of that fence before briefly looking at my hives, because I do have honeybees too. But these are 2 cherry trees, and I have catmint and oh boy, it's way too early in this presentation for me to be doing this. A currant, there we go. And lots of milkweed, which just happened to be in this yard to begin with. So I had very little to do with that except for allowing it to spread. Ignore the grape, I murdered that earlier. Anyway, most of those are good pollinator plants, and you get food out of many of them, not the milkweed. Also, that came with the house, and which have been rather harshly cut back this year because they were getting really sad. We have red osier dogwoods, which are not super great bee plants, although I do see bees on them, but they're great for wasps and flies. In the back are the poor marshmallows. There are more mallows in my yard. These are obviously not a native. What's cool about them? They have purple pollen. So I get leafcutter bees going to them when they're in full bloom, and they have purple bellies. It's very cute. This is also our bulb garden, which mostly doesn't attract that many pollinators, but we think it's pretty. Don't plant forsythia, that also came with our house. We never see anything on that. This will be the site of my new greenhouse that I will hopefully be putting up this week. But that's not super pollinator related, except that I do a lot of seed starting in that. All right, I do have a fairly extensive vegetable garden. Occasionally, I let things like that mustard go to seed. I get lots of cool, really little bees on that. So that's always fun. And of course, squash usually attracts quite a few bees. And we'll see more in the front yard. But what you're not seeing is the terrace behind me. This is one of my native plant areas and also my herb area. The native plants are obviously really great pollinator plants, but so are herbs. So I do grow a lot of herbs. In here, I have, let's see, if we go down, there's obviously some sunflowers. I have a sunflower problem. There's a little syrphid fly. All right, I have oregano, sedum, which again a lot of little bees like. A lot of them will nest in the rock walls. Oregon sunshine, the erigeron, some buckwheat is about done, but that usually attracts some cool stuff. Lavender, which my honeybees really, really like. I have thyme, more Oregon sunshine. It's pretty much about done blooming too there. There's some more sedum, but that blooms in the late summer. This is very attractive when it blooms, which is unfortunately not doing quite yet. This is coyote mint. And we have, of course, some black-eyed Susans. They are now trying to take over my yard. Tarragon's not really that. There is a butterfly bush. This one also came with the house, but well, we get some really cool butterflies coming to it. I'm inclined to leave it. Let's see. We did plant this elderberry, and that's been attracting some cool stuff too, including right there. It is starting to get dark, so a lot of the pollinators have gone to bed, but there's a nice syrphid fly for you. That plant I hate. Then we have some more short raspberries in here, and this was a bunch of catmint, which I realize is not native, but it's a really great bee plant, and we got it on sale because it was like dying at Lowe's. So what are you gonna do? There's some wild geranium. I am in Yakima, Washington, by the way. Yarrow, which again, not a ton of bees go to that, but I get a lot of flies and wasps on it. There's my other stand of milkweed up behind the tiger lilies. The irises also came with the house there. All right, more catmint. This one especially draws in all the bees. And then we go to my right, which has more of my native plant areas actually, and more raised beds. So, coming over here, the hydrangeas came with the house. We don't really get that much on them. The lavender and the sage, on the other hand, also came with the house, but have approximately tripled in size since we've been here. Those attract all the pollinators. This is a liatris, which looks like it's about to start blooming soon. And my cat's talking to me, but she does that. Some leeks in the back there that are a little old, but it's okay. More oregano. There's so much oregano and sunflowers. They have both seeded themselves in very well. The poppies are new this year. I've been seeing some cool stuff go to those. They lose all their petals kind of by the end of the day, so they don't look really cool right now, but they're fun. There's the cat. All right, this is actually one of the cooler areas of the yard, and it used to be one of my least favorite areas. So this pine tree came with the house, as did the Japanese maple behind it. And the coreopsis, that yellow flower, also came with the house, but we've allowed it to spread maybe a little too much. This is Monroe's globe mallow. I'm hoping to one day have diadasia show up. So I established those. We have some other kind of cool stuff in here, more catnip, which Monkey of course loves. And I think that's a salvia, which is fairly good, and another lavender. They're very popular, those lavenders. But so this used to be some coreopsis, but it was mostly English ivy. So that's been a multi-year trying to remove all of the English ivy. I think it took us like 3 years, and we had to cut down a little Colorado blue spruce in this corner, which, to be fair, somebody had also topped it, and I kept almost running over pedestrians because I couldn't see around it. It was about 8 feet tall and just massive. So basically, this was a blue spruce and English ivy. That's all that was here when we moved in. And now it's one of my favorite places in the yard. The milkweed is perennially trying to take over, but I at least have some little control agents there, the red milkweed beetles. So far, no monarchs, but I live in hope. And as it is, the bees love the showy milkweed a lot. This is a non-native. I think that's Celosia. But I do have, let's see, besides the milkweed and the bunch grasses, and this is Lewis's flax. There's also what is that? Fleabane, shaggy fleabane. Um, it might be a little overshadowed at this point. There's some blanket flower down in there. Um, some Oregon sunshine at some point. Basically, I throw like packets of seeds in here too and see what happens. There's even more underneath the Japanese maple, actually. There's some alum root, uh, and nodding onion and some goldenrod back in there. So this has become, oh, I have a little sagebrush. It survived. So that'll be good. Not so much for the pollinators, but for um, native bugs and habitat purposes. All right, back over here. Other things. Oh, the dill is great. I love dill, and fennel. They bring in all the flies, but they're also a host for butterflies, anise swallowtail for one. And you get some other cool stuff on those sometimes, like this ladybug that's apparently chowing down. These are, you didn't ask, but these are Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes. They're actually a type of sunflower, but the root is edible. You just can't eat too many or it gives you gas. Some more lovely blanket flower. I have all of this stuff in the pathways here has basically seeded itself in um, from across the drive. So they apparently really like this area, and I do love my bunch grasses. I think they're very pretty. They might be out of control. It's okay. You will notice a lot of clover in my lawn. We do that intentionally. It's great for the bees, and it makes our lawn look really green, even in the dead of winter, or not the dead of winter, in the dead of summer here. That's really the case. I do need to weed out my tomato bed, but I'm waiting for the garlic to be done, and they're getting really close, actually. So that's good. Sadly, some of the black-eyed Susans will be lost in the weeding. What else have I got? Oh, carrots and peas and beans and stuff like that. Most of which aren't super great pollinator plants, but they keep me fed. Let's see. Then we got some more native plants and other stuff, some of which came with the house. The yarrow is lovely right now. So this area, we used to have two massive rhododendrons, which were just sad. So we replaced them, I think, 2 years ago with these golden currants, which are doing well. I'm actually hoping I'll get golden currants maybe next year. Word of warning, if you have Shasta daisy, it will spread. Same with the fireweed, which is that pinky purple right there. Yes, monkey, I see you. She's very helpful. All right, moving our way around, I have more goldenrod, mock orange, which smells amazing and is a great pollinator plant, and it's native. I don't know how I got it, but I have Clarkia blooming now. I don't know where that came from. And then these, which either already bloomed, I don't think they bloomed yet. Maybe they did. Oh, they're about to. This is one of my favorite wildflowers just because of how beautiful it is. This is giant Mentzelia, or smooth stem blazing star. I call it the azalea of the desert because it has flowers as large as azaleas, but it's like shimmering yellow. They're beautiful. Our peach tree, which actually has some peaches on it this year. more milkweed. You cherry trees again, so we've looped all the way around. This, by the way, I never water anything in here except the peach tree. The peach tree has an emitter like right on it. All the rest of this gets no water. So these buckwheat are just that happy apparently. Yes, monkey. No, I'm not talking to you, dear. Oh, and that's a bitter brush that I'm hoping gets big and has lots of blooms eventually. It's an experiment in this yard. All right. Sort of semi-finally, this was one of my COVID projects over here, this flower bed. Native bunch grasses and snow buckwheat and some more Oregon sunshine. And this is all Lewis's flax, which is pretty much done blooming. It's all gone to seed. My husband was like, you need to get in and deadhead this. And I was like, I probably do. But yes, the fireweed is awesome. I love it. And the bees really, really like that, especially bumblebees. So yeah, all of this was a COVID project. The lavender were free seedlings that spawned from my other lavender plants. I actually have bulbs in these sections, including camas, and I'm enjoying the effect of my natives slowly moving in. That was not intentional. That's just happening, and I'm allowing it. So that's largely the tour. I literally cannot go over like every single plant that I have because that would be like 3 hours, but you kind of got the highlights. These are my beehives. So these are just on my back patio and they're surrounded by the milkweed and sunflowers and a whole bunch of other cool stuff up here, including, I don't know, I just keep getting stuff from like the Master Gardener sale, so I just keep getting more and more diverse stuff in here. This used to just be like, there was a wood fence around this whole patio, and it was very boring. And it's now super amazing. And you probably can't tell, but I have 6 active hives right now. So I'm probably going to be getting a lot of honey this year. Monkey is still following me. And the only other cool thing, well, I have all these pots. I don't know how this fireweed got here. I did not intentionally plant that in that pot. So be warned, if you plant fireweed, it will start to spread. This is one of my other fun things. I mean, most of them are using leaves, but some of them are using flower petals. So it's kind of cool to see what fascinating things they bring. And they're right on my deck, so I can walk right by them when I'm interested. Okay.
Thank
So
you for the
go
tour,
through this-
Katie. It was kind of, I didn't realize at first that you were actually in your yard doing it. I thought it was just a video. And then I was like, oh, wait.
Yeah, if I'd had forethought, I probably would have done it as a video, but I did not. And then today, when I was like, oh, I'll plan out my presentation today, maybe I'll do a video. I've been sick since this morning, so it didn't happen. All right, so I'm going to go through this first bit briefly because I'm assuming largely stuff that you know. Pollinators are important. Pollinators are just an organism that moves pollen from the anther of a flower to the stigma of another flower. I know you guys do bees, but there's other pollinators. So we got beetles, wasps, ants, butterflies, moths, flies. Go back. Some weird things sometimes, like grasshoppers that just kind of do it accidentally. They're usually nomming on the flower itself. There's, of course, birds, mammals, which are mostly bats, and we don't have them here in Washington. I did check. There is a gecko that is a pollinator in like Madagascar, and of course bees. You guys all know all this stuff, I assume. But yeah, we do have over 600 species in Washington, and it might be over 610. Karen is going to confirm some stuff when she gets back from Italy. Um, I'm assuming that you know there's a lot of bees besides honeybees, but a lot of audiences that I talk to do not. I like the blueberry bee. That was in Florida. Um, they definitely range in size. There's a Bombus impatiens queen, and please don't ask me what that is, but she posed very nicely for me on a very windy day. I think she just didn't want to fly. There's a little Lasioglossum. Yes, they're super tiny. I do love the leaf cutters. Those are working on stuff in my yard. Um, this is actually from a friend who was working on bee nesting for his doctorate, and he managed to find these and let me photograph them. So I have these very cool leafcutter bee larva photos. Um, this is one of the plants that I was growing in my yard that I talked about. They kind of have closed up for the day, but it is that bright and orange when they are in full bloom. And I'm just waiting for this little guy to show up. We did catch some this year already at near the Tri-Cities in like the Horn Rapids Park, and at an intersection of the highway near Hanford. Don't really recommend pulling off there, but the club mallow was awesome. All right, so pollinator habitat, how to grow stuff for pollinators. What do they need? Nesting habitat and or larval hosts. And then they definitely need nectar and pollen resources. And the specifics do depend on the pollinator. So what resources do you have to figure out what you might want to grow? Well, I have published on our website a handy dandy guide on pollinator habitat. It includes a spreadsheet, which is massive, and you can sort it by county for really good native plants that pollinators like, and you can even sort it by if it's wild bees, bumblebee species, honeybees, butterflies. We did finally get the butterfly larval hosts on there, and hummingbirds. I may add more stuff later, but it's already a very, very large list. There's something like 300 or 400 plant species on there. It's kind of ridiculous. This is the other tool that I recommend, and this will be expanding into Washington, as well as Oregon. They will be taking our data and adding to this. The Melitoflora tool, you can either search by bee or by region or by specific plants. And so if you have specific bees that you want to plant for, this is what I would use.
Katie, is
Yeah,
that only open to Bee Atlas and Oregon Bee Atlas members, or is that open to the public? Do you know?
that's open to the public. I found it by Googling Melitoflora.
Excellent.
All right. Monkey, now you're really being unhelpful, dear. Okay, so in general, it's very, very general. Bees like yellow, white, and blue colored flowers. I think there may have been a presentation on how bees don't see red, or at least honeybees don't see red. So if it's a red flower, it might not be one that's really intended for bees. It's more likely to be for hummingbirds. A lot of them do like open flowers, but obviously there's specialists out there. The mint family and the aster family tend to be very popular, and I'm sure you guys know about the bees in your backyard as an excellent resource. Things that won't attract bees. Uh, Grass. Grass is not usually attractive. There are exceptions, but not usually attractive. Some bees will actually collect pollen off of it. I've seen it happen, but they have to actually be in bloom for that, and modern lawns don't really like that. I don't know what that is doing. A lot of these modern hybrids like dahlias and a lot of the roses out there aren't super attractive. There's no way for a pollinator to get to the center where the nectar and pollen actually is. So, things that will attract bees. Clover in your lawn. And you might be like, ah, it's mostly honeybees. I see so many cool little native bees on my clover that I really just kind of want to go out there and sweep net it one of these days. Um, this is actually on the left a wild type dahlia. They're very attractive to pollinators, and this is one of our wild roses on the right. Also very attractive to pollinators. I do get asked mostly by master gardeners, but other gardeners who get really into this, about nativars and cultivars. The results on this widely vary. If you can, go for native. If you can't find native seeds for your area, go for a nativar. And if you can't find either one, try to choose a cultivar that at least looks similar to the wild type. Um, the especially the especially important thing is avoid those double flowered varieties. That's the photo on the bottom there. Um, Avoid pesticides, obviously, and if at all in doubt, sit in the plant nursery and see what the pollinators are actually going to in the plant nursery. It's a good general rule of thumb. In general, hummingbirds, if you're interested, like white, pink, or red flowers, typically long tubular shaped flowers. There's a hummingbird that I managed to snatch a photo of going to Indian paintbrush, which is largely pollinated by hummingbirds. If you're interested in learning more about hummingbirds, I do highly recommend the Hummingbird Handbook. Uh, Beautiful, stunning photos of them, and it covers so much information about hummingbirds. Wasps and flies, would be remiss of me not to mention these guys because they help me with my pest control in my yard. The adults do drink nectar for energy, and they're, doing double duty as pest control. They're great. Beetles are the oldest pollinators. So they mostly pollinate white or dull white or green flowers. Think magnolias. Those are one of the oldest flowers still on the planet that's pollinated by insects, and it's pollinated by beetles. Um, in case you were wondering, ocean spray, which is one of our native plants, is most definitely pollinated by beetles. Those are all tumbling flower beetles that just covered that trap that was on ocean spray. And then a note for butterflies and moths. There's of course a lot of plants out there for nectar resources for butterflies and moths, but honestly, if you're planting a pretty wide diversity of flowers, there will be something that they like. The main thing to really target for these is to plant larval hosts, and then, don't spray them with pesticides. So in my yard, I do have the dill and fennel for these swallowtail caterpillars. I also have a bunch of this wild violet, which is a host for I think a lot of lycinids, the little tiny blue butterflies. And of course, there's plenty of native stuff, so you can check out my pollinator forage list for more information. Something else to consider, if you have honeybees, you definitely need to provide a water source. Most of you probably don't have honeybees, but you might still want to think about providing basically a mudding area. A lot of male butterflies need the salts that they get from mud, um, basically for sperm production. So, kind of important for their reproduction. But it's also a great way to get maybe mason bees too, if you have those in your area. So definitely something to consider. And honestly, like a leaky faucet in a muddy area is probably sufficient. You don't really need to do that much. I also get asked if, you should plant in swaths, like the same plant planted in big clusters, or if you should plant stuff out individually or if it matters. And the answer is it depends on what you're trying to attract. They did a study on monarch butterflies, and they preferred milkweeds that were planted together and surrounded by mulch because they find their hosts visually. So it helps to make them stand out. Other pollinators, however, find their host plants by smell or other things. And they actually have density preferences that range from low to high, and some of that is actually due to predation. So they actually prefer a low density, which would mean planting them out individually, to the high density because it reduces predation of the little caterpillars. Now, obviously, what this means to you is do what you want. Something will be happy with it. Pesticide sprays on native plants, just please don't. Well, I still haven't seen a monarch caterpillar on my milkweeds. I do get all of these, and they're very cool. The red milkweed, the cobalt blue milkweed beetle, and there's oleander aphids. And my neighbor was like, "Oh, aren't you going to spray the aphids on your milkweeds?" And I was like, "No, because there was at least one study showing that monarch caterpillars actually prefer milkweeds infested with aphids. So just leave it alone." Winter cleanup, wait, be lazier. Don't prune until spring, and especially leave leaf litter or rake it into your flower beds. Don't remove it. Many pollinators overwinter in leaf litter. I probably should have put a photo in this. I think I took a photo of her. This spring, I found a bumblebee queen in my leaf litter, and I was very excited. Um, some bees do like to nest in hollow stems. You can see those. I think those are Hylaeus. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. Um, if you want to make more habitat for them, if you have stuff that does need to get pruned back and they have hollow stems, don't prune it all the way to the ground. Leave it at least a foot to 18 inches above the ground. And all these pollinators to overwinter, they need protected microclimates. Like some bees, overwinter in the ground, which is pretty protected. But leaf litter, loose bark, there's all kinds of places that they hide away in the winter. So there's an example of my husband very nicely pruning stuff about a foot above the ground and not all the way at the ground like I asked him to. So I did just do a walk through the yard, but I kind of want you to think about it sort of holistically, consider of every element. My lawn areas, which I keep encroaching on by putting in more flower beds, do still have a pretty good diversity of different plants in them. It is not just grass. I have clover and wild violets and yarrow and more stuff that I keep adding. There's a lot of really cool things you can put in your lawn that make it to be a diverse lawn, and that's what you want if you want a lawn area. And if you ever are like, I feel like doing a picnic this weekend, just mow it down like the day before so you don't get stung maybe. But it's pretty easy to just mow an area or not. Obviously add flower beds, all the fruits and vegetables. If you're letting some of them go to flower, those are valuable pollinator habitat. And honestly, I have problems harvesting everything in a timely fashion. So usually some stuff just goes to seed that I may not have wanted to do so. Trees and shrubs, don't forget those either. Some trees and shrubs are really, really super important. Pollinator plants, which I didn't mention, was the big tree that I passed under to get to my peach tree. That is a linden tree, and when it is in full bloom, it just hums. So don't forget your trees and shrubs. Ground cover versus mulch versus bare ground. I like to have a mix of all three because they provide different habitats. Bare ground is great for those soil-dwelling bees. Mulch kind of provides something sort of like leaf litter. It also cuts down on the amount of weeding that I have to do. And then ground cover can be a flowering ground cover or something else that provides some other benefit as well. Water, there is a leaky faucet right there that I let continue leaking into a little dish with pebbles in it. My beehives, by the way, are like approximately right there in that photo. So they they can use that as a water source, or they go to my neighbor's little kiddie swim pool that has fish in it. They're not that picky. Pesticide use, about the only thing that I spray, although I may need to spray my cherries next year. The fruit flies are getting really bad, is my apple tree. And so I'm not going to say like, don't spray any pesticides, but like make sure you read the label and use them as responsibly as possible. Um, I try to use stuff that's organic when I can. Codling moth is evil and I hate it. But the biggest thing that I have done that's actually made a difference in my codling moth control is I spray in the evening. For one, codling moths are active at night, so I'm getting better pest control. But I make sure that I use something that the residuals aren't harmful after like usually like 3 to 6 hours. So by morning rolls around, it's safe for the bees. Um, and so I say like I really don't like codling moth and my cherries have fruit flies. Those are really the only things that I spray. Everything else, I just allow damage to happen. I will do things okay, I will admit I squish an awful lot of squash bugs, but those are also evil. Um, most other stuff, I don't have that many other pest problems, and the ones that I do, I either just don't grow that plant anymore because it's so bad, or I do things like exclusion. Um, I probably should have put a slide in there, but um, you might have seen a white cover over basically PVC pipes on at least one of my raised beds. You can buy basically garden fabric, and you can use that to exclude a lot of pests. So that's pretty much the only way that I can grow like spinach and beets because spinach leaf miner is really bad. And it's the only way I can get cabbages because cabbage rootworm is really bad here. So um, both of those work much better actually than spraying. You just exclude the pests to begin with. So how to get started, use what you already have. You might have heard me or remembered me saying like, this came with the house. Like, you don't have to get rid of everything and start from scratch. You can save stuff that you like. Um, I kind of recommend a mix of all of these different methods. Buying plants from a nursery or plant sale, that's great for that instant gratification. You could ask friends for seedlings or cuttings, plant seeds on bare ground, start your own plants from seed, buy and plant bulbs, and obviously use a combination of methods. The Xerxes Society has a lot of great publications, including the book, Attracting Native Pollinators. Highly recommend that. Oh yeah, I do actually have a photo of the linden tree. So this gets like everything: honeybees, bumblebees, flies, wasps, everything. There are other cool types of landscaping out there than just what I showed you in my yard. My yard is kind of a combination of pollinator patches and garden and food garden and bee lawn. Like I have a lot of things going on. But there's other things out there like rain gardens and managed natural landscapes, which my yard just isn't big enough to do that. There's xeriscaping, which works more for my side of the mountains. Meadowscapes or naturescapes. So there's lots of options out there. And what's really cool is a lot of our cities are starting to do more stuff like that. There's lots of really cool things going on. Clark Conservation District is awesome. Highly recommend them. They have a lot of really cool information on all types of pollinator related things. Clark County has apparently gotten very into pollinators. I do love the meadowscapes. It's not really the habitat that I have or sagebrush steppe. So forbs, bunch grasses, and shrubs is more my thing. But, you know, if you live somewhere where meadows are more common, they're so cool. And you can just have them where basically all you do is every year you mow a different path. And you are going to want to keep it mowed, but that's like once a year type thing. And that's mostly to keep woody plants from encroaching on your meadow. there's a lot of resources out there now for growing your own meadows, and if you can do it, if you live in an area with the habitat for it, it would be really cool to transform your lawn into a meadow. Maybe not this tall, but you can do a short meadow. Um, a lot of utility companies are starting to put in pollinator habitat either under solar farms or along rights of way. City of Vancouver has some cool things called nature spaces where they're basically converting areas of their parks to a much more natural habitat rather than just, lawn under trees. Yay. Uh, Green roofs are becoming more of a thing. This is a bit more specialized. You're probably not going to be able to do this at home because you do actually have to engineer a building to stand up to the weight of the soil and plants on top of it. Um, but there are office buildings that are starting to basically transform all of their landscaping into a more natural setting too, and that's always really cool to see. Same with city halls. So this is that area next to the driveway. So these are, I'm gonna go through these really quick, but this is sort of my transformational photos. Because you saw it now in 2025, but we basically, once we pulled out all of the English ivy, we started with sort of a blank slate in some of this area. So what I did that first year was I did buy a bunch of stuff from plant sales and plant nurseries. Um, and after that, I started throwing in seeds. I started stuff on my own, and it's just more if you'll notice how the milkweed has started in one section and has now spread throughout the whole thing. Um, but my bumblebees really like the milkweed, so I should probably get it a little bit more under control, but that's a lot of work. Um, so this is just, it basically was like the area of sadness, and it's become this area of joy. I really love this area now. And this was that other flower bed that I started during COVID. Like I said, I started it from just the lawn. Um, had an excuse to get outside with a shovel. You can apparently just rent a sod remover, but I was stubborn and needed the exercise. Highly recommend root barriers. Some native stuff likes to run wild, and your lawn will also definitely try to run wild into your native stuff, so it's just better to keep them a little separate. Um, Cardboard is a great weed barrier when you're starting out. Um, I put in a whole bunch of bulbs that I found on sale, including, yes, the camas, and then I just covered them in mulch, basically. So much mulch. And that was basically how I ended it in December, besides starting stuff from seed and seed trays. But by that spring, I was already having the bulbs come up. Um, so that was nice. There was definitely some non-natives, but the allium and camas were natives. In that first year, I planted stuff, and I wasn't really expecting much to bloom because it was pretty much all perennials, but the penstemon started blooming and some other stuff did, and then I realized later that, oh, this is great. And by that first year, I was like, oh, this is looking really good. I think I got the spacing about right. I was so wrong. I was so wrong. I planted stuff way too close together. Um, so it went from year one with zero with just mulch to the end of year two, or it was looking pretty good. This was year three, and the stuff just kept kind of growing and getting bigger, and I should probably do a little bit more maintenance to this, but honestly, all the natives basically block most invasives from coming in, so we really only need to do a couple sweeps for weeds in here, um, and do some deadheading and maybe cut stuff down a little bit in the winter. So yes, this was a very fun project that I greatly enjoyed. Now there's fireweed moving throughout my entire yard. So these were those new shrubs that I showed you guys, the mock oranges and golden currants, uh, that are now doing very well. Last year was a really great cherry year. We had too many cherries. This year, not getting so many, which is probably okay. And that's pretty much the end of the presentation. If you want to learn more, you'll notice the Washington Native Bee Society is one link, but there's a lot of other organizations out there that work on pollinators in various aspects. And at this point,
Wow.
oh,
Oh,
yeah,
that's amazing,
those
Katie.
were some examples of people or municipalities or organizations that are doing some cool um, pollinator habitat work.
It was a great presentation. A lot of people have in the chat have appreciated the quality of the presentation and the information you covered. So I'll turn it back over to Lisa.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up then. Thank you very much, Katie, and we hope you get well really quickly. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
So you hit a good spot.